Spain is definitely one of the leaders in training, and it's one of the destinations for elite training that players around the world know to go with a Spanish coach, or to train with a Spanish coach, to learn according to the Spanish system. So what makes that system so unique? Like, why is it special? And that's what I wrote about in my book, The Secrets of Spanish Tennis. It's in its second edition. The first edition came out in 2014, and we just released a new edition. And basically what they do in Spain is they have an emphasis on movement. They spend a lot of time on footwork and movement, so the players develop a beautiful, graceful flow on the court, and they develop really great balance and coordination when they move. They become very fluid movers, like dancers on the court. And I think that's one of the real benefits of the Spanish method. You learn to move better than other players. You learn to position yourself in relationship to the ball. They spend a lot of time working on the eyes and the feet, getting in great position to receive the ball. And so there's a heavy emphasis on movement and positioning in Spain that now is becoming more common in other countries, but it wasn't always the case. In the 1980s, 1990s, Spain was really a leader in that respect. All right, I think we have our first question on the board here. There's way too much Spanish influence. Sorry, it's a long comment. Where do you live? Tell me where you live. He says there's a really big Spanish influence where he lives. Let me know what part of the world you're from, and then how you see a big Spanish influence there. Let me know. Thank you. So the movement is like a huge part of the Spanish method that I think is very, very special. Another really special thing that they do in Spain is they have this wonderful system of racket acceleration. I've talked about this a lot, and I've written about this a lot. It's basically like a velocity-based training, a VBT form of training. So they have acceleration drills that I think are very, very unique and really do increase your racket speed. So they increase your power and they increase your spin. So Spanish players are very famous for having a big topspin forehand, for example. Rafa Nadal and Carlos Alcaraz have those shots. Many Spanish players are forehand dominant that way. And in fact, many coaches in Spain believe the forehand is the most important shot in tennis, not the serve. Typically in the US, we think the serve is the most important shot. In Spain, they have a philosophy that the forehand is the most important shot. So I think that's a really cool, really interesting insight. And they have these wonderful drills that they do, these fast-paced hand-tossing drills that can literally increase your racket speed. They can help you hit the ball faster and to get more spin, which is really, really valuable at the professional level, at any level. So these are drills that I use all the time with my players, and they're just wonderful for developing like whip and RPM and good kinetic chain, really great stuff. And so that's another thing that makes the Spanish method really, really special. Another thing that they do in Spain that's really unique is they work on consistency. So Spanish players, Alcaraz is a little different. He goes for he's a little more aggressive, but in general, Spanish players are very well known for being solid and patient and consistent. So that's another important element of the Spanish method. They teach players to be stable, to be patient, to be selective with their shots, and they encourage players to extend rallies. So anytime you see a Spanish player, even Alcaraz, even though Alcaraz is explosive and he can do incredible drop shots and hit big winners and things like that, at his heart, he can grind and he can be very, very consistent. So Alcaraz is a kind of an exception to the typical Spanish player, but Alcaraz is, if he wants to be, he can be very, very solid and consistent. And Spanish players are known for that. Like when you play a Spanish guy, like I played on the lower level future circuit, and I played D1 tennis, and Spanish guys, you know you're going to usually get a good baseline battle because they're very patient and they're very consistent. They don't make a lot of mistakes. So they're very stingy with their errors. So I think that's a very good quality to teach all players. not just Spanish players. But that's something they do very well in Spain. They teach a high shot tolerance, which I think is a really good philosophy and practice to have. In Spain, they have a wonderful philosophy of suffering. Like, they literally believe that players should suffer on the court. They believe this culturally and in the tennis world there, that players should suffer. They should learn how to suffer. Rafa Nadal talks about this a lot. I'm sure Alcaraz has talked about this. But they have this warrior ethos. You know, they have this warrior spirit. And it's very special. And something I try to incorporate into my teaching here in the US is I try to have my players learn to develop the same fighting spirit, the same disciplina, and the willingness to suffer is something that's very commonly talked about and coached to all of the athletes there. And so it's just a beautiful philosophy where you're not afraid of pain, suffering. You develop this endurance. Endurance is a word they use a lot in Spain. You develop this capacity to endure, to have a high level of endurance, and to withstand a lot of pain and suffering. That's a quality they actually try to actively develop in the tennis players in Spain. And that's why Spanish players oftentimes are known as the most difficult guys to beat in the tournament. Especially if the match goes to like 3 sets or 5 sets, Spanish players kind of have that reputation of being very tough to defeat because they always fight and they never give up. And it's interesting to me that I think a lot of the Italian players have adopted this fighting spirit, this approach, this willingness to suffer, and that's really helped Italian tennis in many ways. Okay, the comment was from India, and everyone uses topspin. He says that there's a big Spanish influence in India. And this is what I was referring to, and that the players play with a lot of topspin, which we also talked about, and they're very stable. They can grind like 20 balls, and that's very typical of Spanish players. They're like the best guys to practice with at the tournament because you always know you're going to get nice rallies and be able to get a good rhythm with the Spanish guy. You know, so. That's one of the assets, I think, and I think that's a good thing. I think to have a well-organized game, a stable game, that's a word they use a lot in Spain, stability and organization. A very balanced and controlled game can only help you. You can build your weapons on top of that foundation, but you're always going to have a solid foundation when you train the Spanish way. You're not going to have any holes in your game, at least from the baseline in terms of movement. Spanish players are also very well known for being the fittest guys and girls. And that's another major part of the Spanish system. They work a lot on the physical conditioning. Many countries do that now, but they all took that from Spain. Spain was doing that in the 80s and 90s, really excelling at becoming the most physically fit athletes at the tournament. And that's a major part of the Spanish system. So if you like fitness, if you like working hard in the gym and on the track, the Spanish method is for you. They do a lot of physical work off the court. So people think they train like 6 hours of tennis a day in Spain. That's typically not the case at all. They train about half that, about 3 hours a day, and they spend 2.5 hours in the gym, on the track, doing injury prevention, doing workouts to become the most physical beast at the tournament. And that is another really major secret of Spanish tennis. They actively develop the athlete, and I think that they were one of the first countries to do that, and that's one of the reasons why they dominated world tennis. That's a very small country, 50 to 60 million people, and for a very small country, they do extremely well on the international stage. How is that possible? Because they have this wonderful, very unique system.